Oh my goodness. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time. I am going to go through all of the stages for the Baron mode on hard difficulty. Let you guys know how I beat each of the stage, because I understand that with Baron hard difficulty, even the whales are struggling, right? Currently, from when I last checked, I believe there's 2,500 that have beaten Baron so far. I think that was the latest update. I think I was, so basically there was 500 remaining slots left for the top 3,000. I just managed to beat it, so let me just quadruple check. It better say, please say, two, okay, good, okay, we're good, well, we're chilling, thank God. I was about to say, that better not say 3k. But I'm just going to say this right now. I hope that the developers nerf it, and what I mean by that is when the top 3,000 are announced, the remaining people, because of course top 7,000 can get the additional skin and whatnot, I think what they should do is once the top 3,000 is named, nerf it. So that way the Dolphins get a chance. Because boys, let me tell you, this Baron on hard difficulty, if your power level is not at 950, you ain't getting it done. It's just a no shot. Even if you do have your power level at 950 like how I did, your setup has to be damn near somewhat perfect in terms of what is needed by specific items and ruins, etc. And I'll go over that in just a second. So yeah, let the whales have their fun, let the Leviathans and Giga Whales whatnot do their thing, top 3,000, but please tone it down a bit so that way everyone gets a fair chance of farming out the hard difficulty, having a fair chance to get the remaining rewards. Not only that way everyone can maximize the shards for Baron. So that's one thing which I would suggest for the developers of what they should do. Anyway, that being said, let's dive on in for the first fight. Alright, so the first fight, as you guys saw just before I dived on in, of course, this is the first floor, no buffs. I highly recommend you take Amamiya. Amamiya, when it comes to, I mean, then again, if your dark element is quite nicely set up and you've got the power level for Charlotte high up there, like in the 220s region, I'd say, and that she is strong, then of course by all means do so. But even if you are underpowered, so my win team, I believe, either was on par or maybe slightly under. I think it was slightly under if I can remember correctly. But Amamiya is probably, I honestly want to say right now, like the best DPS in the game. Just with the consistency of like the raw damage he just applies, you know, because of course she's a transformation type character, of course. So mistakes were being made right there, of course, which is very unfortunate, but once the break is done, yeah, at that point you're realistically just kind of maximizing on Amamiya, but obviously you've got to be wary of the MP. But I just kind of, I did try to use my Dark Element team after pulling Isla, but Charlotte at that very moment, I just kind of needed more consistency, because again, I still have to work on my Dark Element to power them out, but with Amamiya as a prime example, and keep in mind with the Remnant of Power, we can buff up Amamiya, right? It's that top row. And so that's exactly what I did, by the way, to maximize and to kind of make Amamiya a bit of a beast. Keep in mind, there's also cause and effect. One thing which I will say, take this as note: if you've got a core that is, let's say, is used for Sun Jin Woo, apply that onto Amamiya, depending on what it is, of course. So, for example, with my head core, that gives me 5% attack for Sun Jin Woo. I just said, you know what, screw that. Let me use that core, because the two stats were attack and critical hit damage. And let me, because it was completely maxed out, max level 10, let me throw that onto Amamiya. So if you do have cores, doesn't even need to be maxed out, as long as they have good, decent stats that will cater to Amamiya furthering her more damage, go for it, apply that on, and just go ham. But Amamiya is the unit that I used throughout the hunter fights that basically cleaned house, including the blessing stages. Yeah, she just absolutely tore apart, you know, the enemies, even though as my overall battle power at this current moment of time was slightly less. But the one thing to take note of is that Amamiya is not going to be the character that you're going to be taking when it comes to using Sun Jin Woo. So it's like you want to invest time into Amamiya, but at the same time, you've got to make sure that your characters that you're going to be using for break and support for Sun Jin Woo are also catered to, of course. So 144 on the left on the clock, bringing out Amamiya, making sure that the ultimate and the MP is at play, and then I think once the two phases are done, then we can just go completely in. So we're just going in, low amount of health. Amamiya is doing a ridiculous amount of damage. Again, her skills are classed as like ultimates, as I like to say. It's just, yeah, it's as easy as that. I had a very, very high success rate of just using Amamiya. So that's, and I feel like overall in long-term wise and other modes, Amamiya is just the better character to do up. So there's that. And so we are coming to the end, and this will solidify the first stage of this fight. So I utilized Amamiya as my main DPS. It worked out perfectly fine. So if you do have your Amamiya built up quite nicely, and you can further cater to it a little bit more through the cores and the Remnant of Power, do so, and yeah, hopefully it goes well for you. So that was the first stage done and dusted. Alright, second stage, I decided to take the Dark Element, which I don't recall. But if you look at the power level, 875, 850. So that's something to take notice when it comes to doing Baron hard difficulty, of course. Power level is something that you want to make sure that you're either on par, slightly above, or above, right? I mean, you can be slightly under it, but not too far. Like, I would say if you're like 20k under, or maybe 15k under, that'd be a-okay. Maybe 10k, maybe 15, 10k under, that might be okay. But yeah, I'm utilizing the full Dark Element here. I do not know why. Honestly, I don't recall on why I did this. If anything, I would have utilized Harper, and then what was it? Go, and then Min. That's the typical team that I'm currently using right now for support, which is working perfectly fine. But this works fine. I mean, again, if you do have any of the wind element, but I'm not too sure how West Wind could technically work. I just haven't tried it purely because of the charge up. In these fights, of course, quickness is key, especially when the timer is a thing. And so with the West Wind, I have tried it, by the way, on Baron difficulty. Yeah, it wasn't helping me. Was not helping me. So we'll just quickly continue on, do the ultimate. I'll also mention about a key ruin. I'll further explain my team setup when it comes to the Baron fight, by the way, to anyone, because I know people are trying to find ways to kill Baron as soon as possible. So I'll do my part to give you guys my strat. But anyway, yeah, just kind of went with the dark. I mean, this fight wasn't anything too crazy. Going for the crystals. Again, Dark Element right now for Sun Jin Woo is top tier, so that way we can get a high amount of damage off, of course. Break those crystals, and then we kind of make our way in. I will say getting the A3 for Isla is an absolute godsend, because obviously with using her as a support, she's giving me a crit rate and crit damage buff of 12%, and I'm also getting a damage increase, so 2 for the price of 1, or technically 3 for the price of 1. So and on top of that, she does give me a little bit of shield and healing, so the support play from Isla is actually fairly solid, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so near to the end, so just kind of keeping up with the damage, keeping up with the consistency of just kind of staying on top of it. Again, if make good use of was it the magnifying slashes? It's the Sonic Stream Dark Element. If you have that ruin, by the way, make good use of it. If you have that ruin in Legendary, then congratulations, and that is a GG of a win. You should be able to power through Baron hard mode, taking into consideration if your power level is up there. Unfortunately, I didn't, but I did utilize the Wind Sonic Stream, and you guys will see that in just a second once we get to the Baron fight. But anyway, as per usual, she does her animation. This is very chill, nothing to be scared of. I remember seeing this for the first time when they teased it, and I'm just like, this looks like it's going to be an absolute pain. But no, it's not. So even if you get hit by it, that's a-okay. Shadow Step, there we go. I should have actually dashed there and then done the Moon Shadow Dagger, so that way I can maximize my damage output, but that's a-okay. So at this very moment, just go all in. Isla's doing a thing. MP is slightly low, but we're doing just fine. I mean, you guys can see on the bar on what the blessings are we're using at the time. So there's that. By the way, those are the blessings that I would not suggest when going against Baron. With Azor, you can kind of mix up match it, so you can go full offensive like how I did. But with Baron, there is a specific strat that I had to go with. But anyway, let's just get on with it. Come on. 53 seconds left on the clock. Health bar is slightly low. Ultimate. This ain't gonna kill. To be fair, this ain't gonna do barely any damage, to be fair. So, but it's decently well enough for a little bit of chip damage. Okay, you know what? I'll take that back. That was actually fairly decent. Oh my god. There we go. And so I was trying to get myself a shadow step there, but that kind of failed miserably. But yeah, that is pretty much this fight. Again, if you guys want to utilize wind typing, that's fine. It's doable. This is my old strat. I typically now use the demon longsword. That is my choice of weapon. That is right. And so low on time, it's a-okay, and bada bing bada boom. And that is how I kind of went about defeating this boss. Alrighty, so this is the team that I took. Again, I am slightly under power level. This is Kaisel, or Baran versus Kaisel. Just had to double check if I was recording there. Now this fight, I know a lot of people do struggle with because it is a pain in the ass. But you just have to be, you have to keep your movement on par. I will say Kaisel is heavily, I wouldn't say heavily needed, but he is super clutch, or it is super clutch, because Kaisel does give you movement speed, and in a situation like this, you kind of want that movement speed, and I'll tell you guys why. So at the very beginning, just before he lands, you can sneak in a hit. Obviously I went completely underneath Kaisel, but that's a-okay. Yeah, so I'm using Harper, I'm using Hansemi, and I'm using Amamiya. This is, by the way, my team that I forever use when I'm doing both Hunter's Run and Blessing Runs. This is the team that I use. It works effectively, right? So if that's what, if you want to mimic, if you want to mimic it or copy it, you're more than welcome to. It is a solid team that I like to utilize. So pretty much once you get the break going, you just kind of go all in. I mean, I use Baran there, but it's okay. And at this very moment, it's all about just getting the first phase out the way. I believe once his HP drops to 230, I think that's when he'll initiate the flying away and then go into the middle of the map, and then that's when you have to collect the orbs and heal up and avoid giving it to Kaisel. So once you break through, as you guys can see, just really full on put it on him. And again, if you've catered to, yeah, so 230, I think it's when he changed. These are the blessings that I'm currently using, but these are not the blessings that I used against Baran, and I'll show you, I'll have to tell you guys what I used, because I don't think I've got the full game of Baran recorded. Okay, so continuing on, yep, Kaisel is now in his first phase, and at this very moment, you want to make sure that Amamiya will be coming in next, so that's why I switched over to Hansemi. As per usual, collect as much orbs as you can, and start making preparations to calling Amamiya, so like I have done right now, she comes in. And that's kind of what you want to do as he's falling down, so that way you've got every single second, you're making every single second count. Now this is where the fight becomes extremely hard. Kaisel will now summon these electric, lightning, thunder, whatever, right? As you guys can see on the floor. Now, you cannot go anywhere near those things. As you guys can see, if you look on the floor, there's those light blue lightning pools of area. If you go into those, you're losing 100 MP. Look at my MP right now. It dropped considerably, a ridiculous amount, because I slipped in there. So when you're doing this fight, you have to avoid those pools, because they are draining your MP. It took me a couple of games to realize, because I'm just like, wait, how am I draining my MP? I thought it was because I was spamming my attacks, but that didn't make sense. Come to find out, if I hopped onto those, so he's going to be summoning more. Right, if you go into any of those pods or splashes, I guess, you will lose your MP. So as you guys can see, I'm running around. I'm trying to find the areas of the map that are clear, so that way I can kind of gather my characters, make sure that I've got my MP safe and sound, so that way I can utilize my Amamiya. Amamiya is the most crucial character in the team to make sure that she doesn't lose her MP. So even if you do lose your MP, you can kind of regroup yourself, as you guys can see, and maneuver your way around to an area where there is no of those debuffs, of course. Now he will do it again, so there you go. You gotta move out of the way, make sure if there's a little gap in between right there. Obviously one of the skills does kind of drag you on the other side, so that was horrible. So you can see my MP just drop by a considerable amount. Even with Harper, I've literally lost everything because I was in that pool, but that's a-okay as long as Amamiya is in the fight, because she is your main DPS character. And so that is pretty much the big key thing that is going to be a big struggle, one that a lot of people are struggling with. You just have to avoid those pools, but they are very difficult. I guess if you have, I haven't tried it or not, but like if you've got Ayla, I mean, you can potentially try and use her skill, because she can remove debuffs within the area, so she might be able to remove that. So I mean, you could run that if you want to, if that works out. But yeah, 30 seconds left of the clock. I decided to use Harper's ultimate here, which near enough did the trick. Hansemi comes in and clears up. So yeah, you just need to make sure that Amamiya doesn't hop into the pool and lose her MP, because then at that point you just have to restart. Alright, so this is the Baron fight. I am on the second... No, sorry. So this is the end... No, this is the second phase. So you saw at the very beginning on the blessings that I was using, a lot of increased damage for him to take, of course. But I decided not to record it, thinking that I wasn't going to get it, and then I was like, hold on a minute, I'm getting some fat crits. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to have time to pause the game and record the end of it. So this is pretty much the final end of it, of course. As you guys can see, I'm making good use of the Demon Longsword. That was my weapons of choice, and getting those good damage off. I'm telling you right now, the Demon Longsword, low-key, they buffed it so perfectly. But I'll go through all my builds so that way if you guys want to try and mimic it, you're more than welcome to. So 32 bars of health, 17 on the clock. It's a-okay. Do not panic thinking it's game over, because you can still do a ton of damage. And yep, I kept a hold of my ultimate, thinking that if I wasn't doing enough damage, I'll use it as like a plan B. So once they hit 1 second, I can ult and get the 2 bars off. But yeah, so that was the fair end of it. I do apologize. I just didn't think I was going to get it this run, and lo and behold, I lucked out with like getting big crit damages. So right, let me go over on the build that I decided to use against Baron. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so this is pretty much it. I had Big Rock, I had Kaisel for movement speed, and I had Serbi for the combustion. Remnant of Power, obviously Baron as per usual. Go, Min, and Harper. Now, as you guys can see, I've got this on for Min. The reason why I've got Amamiya's weapon on is not so that Min is going to get a buff from it or anything like that. I'm purely taking this for my power level. That is it. It's not to do with anything. It's just to buff up my power level so that I'm above 950. That is the only reason I'm doing that. So if you want to try and utilize that, you're more than welcome to. I would say give Harper and the Go a specific weapon that's going to help them out, because I mean chip damage from these guys isn't that terrible. But I mean you can utilize giving yourself a bit of a power increase through the weaponry. Alright. Weapons of choice, Demon Longsword, Plum Sword. Demon Longsword is going to be the... I'm barely using... You'll see, I mean, the only time I used the Demon Plum Sword was at the very beginning of the game, of the fight. Ever since then, I just kept using the Demon Longsword. Didn't even switch out. I just kept using it. Basic attacks, skills, core damage, everything. This was doing the job. In terms of artifacts, just, yep, pretty much Curse, Greed, Blessing, Greed. Nothing too crazy on that one. You can run Expert if you've got a good enough set, but I just went with Curse, sorry, because that was the best set I had. Now, the setup is this as follows. You know, when it comes to survivability, you can have wherever you want, to be fair, but I just went with these two because they're legendary, and because they're legendary, they give you more power level. That's the only reason why I ran these two, and plus they're fairly good too in terms of what they apply, so it wasn't that horrible. Now, when it comes to the main blessings, make sure you are running Fatal Strike. This is the hidden gem to beat Baron, because the quicker you break his gauge, the quicker you can maximize your damage output, the quicker you can beat him, get those phases going, and you never know, you might be able to win it. With that, team that will pulverize, that way you can get the break going. Alright, that's kind of what I utilized to get the breakage as soon as possible. Reawakening for the cooldown cost, clearly you need that. Now, one of the ruin which people will use is weakness detection. I took this off and I put on sharp perception, purely because fat crits, and I wasn't getting any of them. My roll for crits were horrible, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get rid of this, because truth be told, weakness detection doesn't really do you much. So I was like, screw this, I need crits, so I'm gonna resort to getting myself this, and lo and behold, it worked. I was getting fat crits with my Demon Longsword skill attack, as well as my ruin skill attacks. So those are the 4 ruins that I went with, and I broke the gauge. I had my skill cooldown very consistent, and I relied on this here to give me fat crit damages. In terms of what you want in your ruins, you want Vacuum Wave. Doesn't need to be legendary. You can utilize this in heroic form. because you're not taking it for the damage, you're taking it for the almighty break, as well as the additional increased damage that you can do, whether it be 10% or 15%. It's just going to help out. Now, the second skill in question, a lot of people are utilizing the magnifying slashes, which you can do so, but I built a wind build. I built a wind build. There we go. I built a wind build for Sun Jin Woo, and because I've got this in the legendary form, I utilized this bad boy. And if you get the crits on this one, it drops 9 mil at times, 8 mil, 10 mil. Of course, that's if I get it lucky with a crit. On base average, it's doing around about 4 mil, right? And then if I get hit the last hit, of course, it does give me the attack increase. The last blade shot does 50% more, but it's giving me the attack increase, which helps out my demon longsword to do that little bit more damage. So this is the rune that I utilize, but everyone that I've seen is using the magnifying slashes, which is optimal, and I think this is more favored to. I just tried something different, and thank God it worked out. All right, and that is pretty much the 3 runes on hand on what a lot of people are utilizing. All right, and then core wise, yeah, we maximize cores. Again, you don't really need to pair up the cores and the typings, because as of right now, you're just taking it for the stats, not so much of what they do. Obviously with Sun Jin Woo, you want to take it with him getting the additional, so this was the first core that I maxed out, right? Attack increase 5%. But for these lot, you can just mix and match and put wherever. Just make sure that they're maximizing their stats. So I think this one's a fairly good stat for, yeah, so this one's actually fairly decent. But yeah, oh, also, Remnant of Power. I did a video on this, but I'm just gonna show you guys the change that I made. So I completed all of this, got to the second phase, and then on the second phase, as you guys can see, I filled out the middle bar and the bottom bar. Why? So that way I can get this one. Now, I don't expect you guys to be at this stage, but I'm just letting you guys know, when you are doing your Remnant of Power, yeah, you have to fill out the middle bar and the bottom bar to unlock the Sun Jin Woo increase. So you can really power him up just by skipping the first row, and then just kind of utilizing that. What you guys can do if you want to is do the top row for Amamiya, push through the hunters, and then once you get onto the Baron, you can reset. It will cost you 500 essence, and then you can run it for the bottom, so that way you're powering up your Sun Jin Woo for Baron. So that's something that I would suggest. That's what I did. So there's that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is yeah, how the Baron hard fight went with myself. It's an absolute pain in the ass. I hate it. I'm glad it's done though.